Hey, what's up guys, John here. What just happened inside of Yemen is something that we all need to pay very close attention to.
Israeli fighter jets carried out airstrikes on Saturday on the Houthi-controlled port of Hodeidah in Yemen.
Israel's necessary and proportionate strikes were carried out in order to stop the Houthi terror attacks.
Because our worlds in the West are going to radically change. We live in what I would call a dystopian world now, where not even a week ago, a former president, Donald Trump, was shot. And this is almost no longer talked about. This hasn't even been a week, or maybe it's just been a week, right? We're being hit with one major event after the next. But this transition is what I would call it, into a different world is where we're really headed. It's not really these current events that are so important. It's the direction of where we're actually going. Look at, for example, Russia. We issued sanctions on Russia maybe a year and a half ago.
The United States has issued its largest sanctions package against Russia since Moscow invaded Ukraine 2 years ago.
As this whole thing kind of got out of control. Then issued further sanctions on China, issued them on Iran, issued them on all these different countries. Well, now what do you think is going to happen with this chaos unfolding in Yemen? Well, what I believe is going to happen is we are going to begin to see many of these countries pull back from the West. I think we're going to walk into a trade war, a situation which is going to greatly impact American consumers. My prediction is that we're going to see oil prices likely go up. We are likely going to see inflation get out of control. Inflation is going to hit us in many which directions, one of which could be property insurance, could be auto insurance. Because if the cost of oil and gas goes up, and all the car parts, all the home parts, ACs, all the conductors, all of the nails and screws and wood and shingles and everything that gets exported continues to get more expensive as it gets pushed over here to America. It's going to get pushed onto the consumer. And what generally happens in a period of chaos and war? Inflation. The money printer turns on. And so you start to look at where American consumers are right now. They're already to the brink of financial destruction. Most American consumers are sitting in a lot of debt. I had a conversation with a gentleman that owns a debt relief company. He's doing a lot of business, 9 figures a month in debt. That he said, John, last year the average consumer that we were working with, they were $24,000, $25,000 in overall consumer debt. You know what it is this year, John? I said, what? $38,000. $38,000 is the average consumer debt that he is dealing with. And so you start to think about where we're going, where this is all headed. We're going to walk into inflationary times, and this inflationary period is going to push a lot of consumers over the edge, right? This is where we're all going to go. And what are wealthy Americans going to do? What are these private equity firms, these institutional investors going to do? They're going to look to deploy that cash into hard, real assets. They're going to look to buy single-family homes. They're going to look to buy distressed commercial real estate, office buildings, land. They're going to look to deploy this dying currency because that's what it is now. In 2017, the World Economic Forum put out an article, and in this article, they said they had a prediction for the world, 2030. And this world is going to be comprised of a basket of reserve currencies that are going to essentially control all global trade. There will no longer be the dollar. And this was a prediction 2017. Back then, that was pretty crazy to say. Who would have believed such a thing? Now, when you have these BRICS nations expanding, over 36 nations already signed on, they're already anchored into BRICS, you ask yourself, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to continue to grow. And as they continue to grow, and they no longer need the dollar, what is the petrodollar without petrol? What is the petrodollar, where we're going, right? It's less and less of a necessity, less and less of a mandatory requirement for a lot of these other countries. So I think we're walking into very turbulent times in which it will impact the West far worse than a lot of other nations. Discover what, in my view, is an unparalleled investment opportunity in Alaska Energy Metals Corp, positioned at the forefront of the critical metals revolution amid a dramatic market correction. Alaska Energy Metals Corp, stock ticker AKEMF, offers a historical buying opportunity with shares at an all-time low, Following a series of strategic financings, savvy investors can enter groundbreaking prices never seen before. Nickel is the unsung hero of the EV revolution, comprising a significant portion of electric car batteries. As the demand for electric cars surges, the need for nickel soars, positioning Alaska Energy Metals Corp at the epicenter of a global supply chain shift. The United States currently imports 100% of the nickel that it currently needs. This reliance on foreign nickel sourced primarily from countries like Russia and Indonesia with Chinese control pose a significant national security risk. The market values Alaska Energy deposits at USD 0.0016 per pound. The market cap of this company is $13.1 million in USD, and it has an inferred resource of 4.2 billion pounds and an indicated resource of 4.2 billion pounds of nickel. In contrast, Canada Nickel has a market cap of USD 188 million. The market values its nickel at USD 0.0119 per pound from a 13 billion pound resource, showing a 7.3x difference. Although Canada's nickel is more advanced with a positive feasibility study, Alaska Energy Metals highlights a significant undervaluation, indicating a substantial growth opportunity situated in the heart of Alaska. Flagship Nikolai project holds billions of pounds of high-grade nickel. While a long way from being a mine, it's a strategic asset in the U.S.'s push for energy independence and a critical mineral security, which could be highly valuable. As global tensions affect nickel supply chains, investing in Alaska Energy Metals could pay off. The drills are turning, adding to the knowledge base. Now could be a great time to invest. Do your homework, but take a look. You could capitalize on the critical metals boom. For more information, click the link in the description just below this video. Some would say, it's going to impact everybody. I would agree. It will impact everyone. No one's going to get out of this unscathed, but U.S. consumers that are sitting in mountains and mountains of debt, that are heavily reliant on having lines of credit from credit card companies and from bank lenders are going to see the writing on the wall as defaults continue to skyrocket. You're seeing this across automotive loans, across credit card loans, across payday loans, across all types of consumer lines of credit. We're seeing more and more and more defaults and delinquencies. If we walk into this disaster and we stand beside another country that's in this problem, what do you think is going to happen? Right? We're going to go down with it, right? This is where, unfortunately, the West is going. This is why I think we're seeing a lot of, people looking at the world a lot differently. We live in a world where, any of these events that happen now, it seems like every other day. 10 years ago, this would have been talked about nonstop for many, many, many years. Now, one of these major events, forgotten in a week, forgotten in 3-4 days. Why? Why is this all happening? Well, I think it's to basically put people into a state to where they just are more accepting of insanity, more accepting of craziness and dysfunction, and they're more open to accepting change because that's what's happening to the global world order. Ray Dalio, the CEO and founder of Bridgewater Associates, in 2013, this is the largest hedge fund on planet Earth. He came out with a book called Changing World Order, talking about how America is basically going to go through a really big period of change. And he went and referenced history about all these other countries and all these other nations, all these other currencies that went through this very, very similar pattern in which we're going through at this very, very moment. But the big question is, what do you do with your money? What should you consider doing? And where and who is this going to impact the most? Now, what I think is going to happen is owning real assets, owning things that matter, will likely hold more stability in your wealth than, let's just say, betting on some type of meme coin or some type of crypto or some type of something that you're hoping is going to 10x that might go to 0 or it might go to 100x. You just never know. I think having stability is going to mean a lot. I think owning, look at, for example, India. They own the entire periodic table, right? If you look at a lot of these Eastern nations, they have a lot of minerals, a lot of oil, a lot of production, right? This is what's going to matter during this period of a lot of global change. China has their own problems, but when you start to look at all these changes, I think owning gold and silver and owning some of these things are going to really provide a lot of value. You start to look at where America gets a lot of their resources. They import basically everything. Everything comes into America. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was a little bit more. A little bit more we were producing. A little bit more we were producing. 30, 40 years ago, we were producing more and more and more. 50, 75 years ago, we were producing basically everything, right? Every few years, we're producing less and less and less. More is getting pushed out into other countries. But what is going to happen as these countries start to pull back from us, right? The cost of goods are going to go through the roof as our dollar buys less, as they want to trade less with us. All of this is going to get pushed onto us. So when I say that we're walking into the death of the middle class, sadly, that seems like that's what's going to happen. When they talk about this war to combat inequality and inequity, and they want to really help and protect certain classes and certain groups in America, is that going to happen? Maybe that intention is pure. Maybe that intention is true. But in a world that's changing like our world, is that actually going to happen? Or is this just another major distraction to get people divided and get people looking in the other direction as we get basically flipped on our head? What do you think about this entire situation? Where do you see all this going? Do you think we're walking into a world where everything is going to go through the roof in cost? I'm like, forget just the home insurance, the auto insurance. Think about food. Think about your shoes, your clothes. Think about everything. As all this change and disruption happens, don't you think many employers are going to be looking at this as well? The consumers are going to be getting hit. Consumers are going to be spending less. Their businesses, many of which will be doing much less in sales. And they're going to be looking to cut costs. How are they going to cut costs? Outsourcing talent, bringing in talent from overseas, leaning into AI and automation and robotics and tech. And they're going to be trying to do a lot more with a lot less to try to survive. We're walking into some pretty crazy times. It's unfortunate what's going on, in these other nations. Last thing I want to see is anybody getting hurt. Nobody wants to see that. But look at the big picture here. Everybody is getting hurt, whether it be physically or financially. Everyone's going through their own problems. And I unfortunately think that the next couple of years, these problems are going to grow at a magnitude which none of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes. What do you think about this entire situation? Drop below. Let's have a conversation about this. And for more information on today's sponsor, you can click the link in the description just below this video. And I'll catch you next video.